talk about wealth of knowledge. You bring it all together.
Put the work in now to get yourself structured and organized and documented.
We need to grow this top line.
There is no one size fits all for this industry.
Hey there, restorers. Thanks for checking out a fresh episode of the Restoration Masterclass on profitability. We're doing this in 2023 throughout the year, and I am excited to bring in Phil Rosebrook for this topic. We're talking about business acumen and what restorers really need to know to have that profitable, forward-driving business, vibrant business models. I know that Phil has worked with many companies over the years and seen companies all shapes and sizes, different cultures, different growth models, different amounts of profitability, all the things. So if you don't know Phil, he's with Business Mentors. If you don't know him, I don't know we're going to talk about business acumen and who you need to know and what you need to know. How about that? So,
perfect.
Yes. All right, Phil, I'm going to toss it over to you and have you kind of introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background before we jump into the topic.
Okay. So I started out in restoration back in 1988. Spent 10 years in the trenches, filled every role in a restoration company, from extracting water and cleaning walls to managing offices. So I filled every role. It was a family business. My father sold the company and took what I call his restoration road trip, drove from Oregon to Michigan and back, with this belief that restorers needed someone to talk to who had been in their shoes. And so when he got back, he hung up his shingle in October of 97. We just celebrated our 25th, now 26th anniversary coming up here soon. And I started out with him about 6 months later, 27-year-old business consultant, traveling around North America, helping restoration companies create a vision and a plan for their business, and then taking that plan off the shelf and walking through execution in those businesses. So
Perfect.
I've done restoration my adult working life.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So in all the companies that you have been involved with over the years, what are maybe top 3-ish things that you've seen the most successful restoration companies do to increase their profitability? And we're talking, there's obviously revenue and net profit, like all of those things, but to increase their overall profitability, what are the top things you see the best restoration companies doing?
Yeah. I made some notes, Michelle. So I had to look down at my notes here. So the number one thing, everybody looks and say, okay, I should cut overhead. I should look at how I spend money. I should look at the reality is the easiest place to go find money is in your productive labor, your jobs, improving margin on jobs. And here's a neat little stat for you. If you improve your gross margin on a job by 5 points, most companies will double their net profit.
Wow.
So you improve your margins by 5 points, you will double your net profit dollars. So you could double net profit dollars by doubling your revenue or changing your margins by 5 points. Now, if you're making a 60% gross margin because you're doing all mitigation work, then the math doesn't necessarily work out as well that way. But for a typical restorer, go run the numbers, take a look and say, okay, if I'm producing 35% margin and I moved it to 40, what does that do? And so the number one thing, take a look at your job margins, set budgets on your projects, manage those budgets, and assure that you're profitable in the work you're doing. And it's the easiest way to make or lose money in your business. So the next thing is defining your business strategy and being true to your business strategy. So when you try to be all things to all people, you can get lost in what you're doing. And so you find yourself taking every single job that comes at you, or trying to do, whether I'm going to be mold and asbestos, I'm do large loss, I'm going to do program work. And when you start doing that, you really lose your way, and it's easy to grow your overhead, to kind of miss and lose dollars and lose profitability. So create a plan and strategy, define what you're going to look like, create it, and then build it. I was a scuba diver once in my life, and sort of you plan the dive the plan. Same way you plan your business, plan your success and your profitability, and then you execute that plan. And so probably second one, and then the third one is likely, I think one of the biggest struggles is benchmarking performance. So what does that successful company look like? How much should my project managers be doing in production management? Or how much should my marketing people be producing on a weekly or monthly or annual basis, whatever it is. How many admin people do you need in my office? So start benchmarking performance in your company, and then getting buy-in and agreement that that's what people believe they should or could be doing, and then hold them accountable for it. So accountability is, it's a two-way street. There's a good side of accountability that says you did a great job and I'm going to recognize that and I'm going to reward that and celebrate success. Or the other part about it, which everybody always thinks is the bad part. You didn't do something, so therefore something happens. But once you benchmark, created goals, expectations, and then you manage to performance.
Okay.
There's three easy takeaways. Make money, and you'll see yourself being successful. So
Perfect. Okay. So I'm curious about overall business and overall industry acumen. I can think of a lot of companies out there that I don't see at like the RIA shows or whatever. And they're pretty big companies, right? That you don't see super involved in the industry, but then there are also massive companies that are heavily involved in the industry that also do really well. So, and smaller companies, I mean, it goes either way. It doesn't really matter the size of the company, but how important do you think industry involvement is in the overall like ability to make a profit and run a solid restoration company?
Yeah. So I was really fortunate. I've kind of spanned a number of different sort of generations in the industry. And I was one of the fortunate people that got to study under Marty King. He was one of my mentors in the industry, created the Certified Restorer program. And he always understood that we need to elevate the level of professionalism of the industry to be effective and successful. And so and in creating the Certified Restorer program, which I was fortunate enough to go through Marty's class and have Marty as the instructor for that. A lot of it gets into industry acumen. It's not, they would teach you about whether it's painting or drying or restoration or mitigation or everything, but it was the entire project, because he understood that we were the sort of the shareholders or the owners of the industry. And in order to do that, we really need to understand how to be effective within that. And so you take a look at it. So it wasn't just knowing the business of the business or knowing the technical parts of the restoration, but it was also, there's a big part of it is ethics, because you think about all of the competing interests we have in a job and really being true to the core ethics. Your company is going to perform as you perform. And so what you do as an owner or a manager is what your employees are going to do. And so understanding where you sort of your stake in the ground and what your company stands for and values, and knowing the ethics of the industry was extremely important. So we had technical ethics, business acumen, estimating, management. All those things kind of go into play in creating a successful business and creating this long-term successful business. And maybe bigger than that, it was creating a successful industry. And so probably more than anyone, Marty King really defined what a successful company and a successful restorer would be. I don't know that he necessarily had the most successful businesses within that. He maybe went too far off the deep end of being really, really technically astute and missing the business parts. But I think that you got to take a look at everything that goes into this and say, how do we build and package this together for long-term success and our livelihood? So you mentioned just restoration acumen, and I started making some notes and started thinking about the complexity of this industry. And a lot of people get into, especially you look at what's going on in the world today with all these private equity companies and these outside players coming in and saying, okay, this is really easy. Look, there's endless amounts of work and they're paid for by an insurance company and the margins are great. And then the reality kind of hits in and says, wow, this is a lot more complicated, and it'll sneak up on you. So, I mean, you start looking at, I sort of looked at some of the issues we have. We have dealing with 5 different potential people on a job that all have competing interests. And we have to balance those out. You got the property owner, you got the insurance adjuster, you got the insurance broker or agent, you've got a tenant, you've got the occupants of those buildings. And so we're understanding that is going to be an extremely important element in creating this successful, kind of navigating a successful business, because once again, you can't be all things to all people. But then you have to kind of also figure out within that, what is our main priority? And Ken Larson would say it's protecting, it's looking out for the property. And so if in some ways, I think our number one priority always has to be the safety and health of the
Yeah.
building and the occupants of the building, and whether it's our employees or the tenants or the people living in a house or the owners or whatever it is. And so now we have all these competing interests, and then we have safety and health, and then we got our legal. So my friend Ed Cross is really showing us all the importance of a good, solid legal platform to work in. You've got legislatures, whether it's national, local. Um, you've got changing building environments. You've got all this new technology. You've got heck, you have cyber that you have to worry about. Like, I'm building all of this stuff, and it's going to be destroyed overnight because I didn't take care of my technology.
Yeah.
And so all of these things, so that's the acumen goes into the fact that this is a really complex industry. And if we don't do it right, then we have risks from all of these different competing interests that can become quite substantive in our business. Whether it's HR and safety and profitability and collections. Gosh, we did a great job. And then at the end of it, we can't collect our money because we didn't get the right contract signed with the right person, because we were talking to the wrong person on the job that we thought was a decision maker. All this stuff is, so you look back and say, okay, I didn't see that one coming. Or if you've taken care of your business diligence and you really looked and said, okay, I kind of understand the field I'm playing on. Now I got to start putting the pieces in place to be successful with that. So the acumen in restoration is probably different than a lot of other businesses.
Yes. Okay. So with that much to know, what do you recommend? What resources do you recommend to restorers? And I'm going to just say first, for people that don't connect with you on LinkedIn or aren't part of
Yeah.
your business owners group that's on LinkedIn, I think you're up to like 10,000 owners in that group or something like that. Like
11,000.
Okay,
11,000 and
yeah.
change. Yeah.
It's a lot. So those are two really good resources right out of the gate. And Phil shares a ton of content from a bunch of different places in the industry, not, a bunch of different platforms from a lot of different angles. So I'm going to throw that out there and give you some fist bumps
Thank you.
there, because that's a good resource. But what else should restorers be doing to stay up on all of these trends, all the different angles that they need to be looking at things?
Well, gosh, let's throw it back at you and say Cleaning and Restoration Magazine is one of my first choices. There's trade publications, whether it's Cleanfax or Cleaning and Restoration Nation. So trade publications, the internet, be careful. One of the things, be careful on the internet, because first of all, it's just, there's so much out there that you can really start running down maybe the wrong road, or just getting confused, or taking time away from your business. And so you have to put it in its space and then say, okay, I'm going to take care of my business, and then I'm going to study some of my business. But there's peer groups. There's a lot of great opportunities to learn from people within the industry. The trade shows are fantastic. That was kind of another plug here. Michelle and Phil's Happy Hour. We tend to take conversations that were the model of how I learned in the industry. It's like, okay, let's go learn something from our peers in the industry at the show. So we're gonna go sit in a classroom, and then afterwards, we're gonna just talk about successful restoration companies or practices, or dealing with adjusters or challenges and problems. And then take that away back to your own peer group, make them your peer group, and keep that conversation going. There's experts in the industry, whether it's business mentors or Beyond or business networks, or there's lots of different players to go find the peer group and the advisors, the mentors that you need in your business to help you. Because as we talked about before, there's risks everywhere, and it's so complicated. And we're looking at the business parts of it, and we're looking at the restoration parts of it, and that's a lot of balls to keep in the air. And so it's nice sometimes to have somebody who maybe has that experience in the coaching end of it to kind of help you through that process.
Yeah.
So lots of online resources. I think the more you get into social media groups, the deeper you can dig, and sort of the less you start harvesting from there. Yeah.
Be careful where you go to, and some groups will take you way off the rails. So okay, before we wrap it up, what is your number one tip? It doesn't have to do with business acumen or anything. It can be anything. Number one tip for having a profitable restoration company.
Oh, wow. Okay. Number one tip. Okay, here's what I'm gonna say. Number one tip for profitable, but I'm gonna turn this back around and say I'm gonna call it successful. And so because profitability is not always what we're driving for. you have to have profitability to sustain and be around forever, for as long as you want to be. I think the other part about it is saying, okay, here's my definition of success. You ready? It's being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it, and being able to have those decisions. And so having a successful company makes that a whole lot easier, because it funds you the opportunity to do and be and participate in the things. Maybe it's showing up at work every day at 8 o'clock in the morning, and maybe it's going to old Lahaina town before it burns up, or whatever it's important to you. And so start taking a look at those things and building it into your model of here's what it looks like, and build it, and then you can do it and see it and achieve it. And I think sometimes it's people aren't disciplined in the activity of their business. They get too caught up in the day-to-day, and they stop thinking about what they should be doing when they should be doing it. My friend Larry Janeski, one of the presentations he had done once, he said, start looking at your time and figure out what kind of $25 activities you're doing, and hire somebody for $25 an hour, and then you go work on your $1,000 an hour activities. And so whatever it is, so take a look and be deliberate about how you spend your time, where you're going, and what you're going to do. Build that roadmap, and then follow that map, and that will take you to your level or your definition of success.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Phil. Anything else you want to add before we wrap it up? It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you for putting this on. I think this is a great idea, and pleasure to be a part of this. So thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. I will see you soon.